Dillon Gabriel took a shot at Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion Primetime Sanders and rising superstar of college football. But instead of making waves with his words, Gabriel lit a match and tossed it straight into the media firestorm. One man saw the whole thing, and he did not let it slide. Stephen A. Smith wasted zero time before unleashing one of the most brutal takedowns of his career. Live on television, he didn't just criticize Gabriel. He dismantled him, piece by piece, word by word. With his signature blend of volume, vocabulary, and righteous indignation, Stephen A. dragged Gabriel's name across the turf. Not only for the disrespectful remark, but for what Smith called an audacity without receipts. The subtext was loud. Who is Dillon Gabriel to question Shedeur Sanders, when Gabriel's own career stats barely warrant a headline? And that's when the contrast became impossible to ignore.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
While Shedeur Sanders is commanding national attention with every snap, balancing pressure, performance, and a high-profile legacy, Gabriel is still fighting for relevance. Where Sanders looks like a future first-round draft pick, Gabriel's profile has been stuck in the solid but unspectacular tier. And this is exactly what Stephen A. zeroed in on. He didn't just defend Shedeur. He turned Gabriel's remarks into a full-blown career referendum, blasting his inconsistency, lack of standout moments, and inability to back up the trash talk. Gabriel, in trying to dent Sanders' armor, accidentally polished it instead. The failed dig only highlighted the media's growing reverence for Sanders' poise and potential, and the fact that, for all his bravado, Gabriel's name only trended because of this outburst. It wasn't just a bad take. It was a career cell phone. And in one fiery segment, Stephen A. didn't just restore Sanders' shine. He cemented Gabriel's role as the latest cautionary tale in college football. Don't punch up if you can't handle the swing back. It started with a little trash talk, some cocky, dismissive words tossed out like they wouldn't come back to haunt him. But what Dillon Gabriel didn't see coming was a full-blown televised takedown that would shred whatever credibility he had left. And the man behind it? Stephen A. Smith, the high priest of sports commentary. The moment Gabriel decided to come for Shedeur Sanders, he unknowingly signed up for a verbal evisceration in front of entire nation. Let's be clear, Stephen A. wasn't playing nice. He didn't hedge, he didn't soften the blow, and he absolutely did not let Gabriel off easy. No, what aired was more than a critique, it was a public reckoning. Smith lit into Dillon Gabriel on live TV, calling out not just the disrespect, but the arrogance behind it. It wasn't just that Gabriel took a swipe at Shedeur, it's that he tried to do it without the numbers, the resume, or frankly, the relevance to back it up. See, this wasn't just two quarterbacks jawing at each other. This was a clash of substance versus insecurity. Shedeur Sanders, with the pressure of his father's name, the spotlight of media hype, and the weight of expectations on his shoulders, has shown up. Game after game. Stat after stat. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel? Let's just say his performance hasn't exactly demanded anyone's attention. And that's where the real problem started. Gabriel's comments weren't just poorly timed. They were miscalculated. Because when you're standing in the shadow of a rising star like Shedeur Sanders, trying to dim his light only throws your own shortcomings into sharper focus. And Stephen A. was not about to let that slide. On air, Smith went in with scalpel-level precision. He didn't just defend Sanders, he dismantled Gabriel. Point by point, he called out the weak stats, the lack of impact, the way Gabriel's name only trended because he said something reckless, not because he played like a star. It was brutal, and it was deserved. Because here's the thing about sports media. When someone like Stephen A. Smith decides to drag you, it's not just noise, it's narrative. And that narrative now follows Gabriel everywhere. His attempt to diminish Shedeur Sanders? It only backfired. Massively. Shedeur, on the other hand, came out of this looking even stronger. He didn't have to say a word. His game spoke for him. His composure did the work. While Gabriel flailed for attention through criticism, Shedeur stood calm, collected, and, most importantly, credible. It's hard to overstate the cultural weight Shedeur carries. Being Deion Sanders' son isn't a free pass. It's pressure, magnified 100 times over. Every move he makes is under a microscope, every stat compared not just to his peers, but to a legacy. And yet, he delivers. That's what makes Gabriel's comments not just foolish, but reckless. Stephen A. didn't just defend Shedeur as a player. He defended him as a symbol of rising black excellence in college football. A player who commands respect not because of his name alone, but because of how he shows up when it matters. The calm in the chaos. The workhorse behind the highlights. That's what Shedeur brings. And Stephen A. made it clear, you don't come for someone like that with half-baked bravado and weak receipts. Gabriel's swipe wasn't just a bad take. It was a strategic misstep that exposed how deeply he misunderstood the moment. His critique might have been brushed off if it had come with any weight, any substance. But instead, it came from someone whose performance barely moves the needle, someone who's not even in the same tier of public relevance. That's what made Stephen A.'s takedown sting so much harder. He didn't need to exaggerate. The contrast between the two quarterbacks did all the work. And let's be real, this wasn't just about football. There was a bigger undercurrent, a cultural one. Gabriel's dismissal of Shedeur wasn't received as just another sports jab. It hit a nerve, because it played into something deeper. Shedeur represents more than just stats. He represents a shift. A young black quarterback not just surviving, but thriving. With media presence, charisma, and undeniable skill. To come for that without respect? To try to knock that down with cheap shots instead of better play? Yeah, that's gonna get called out. And in this case, it got nuked from orbit. Stephen A. didn't just go off for the sake of drama. He laid out a case. He broke down why Shedeur's performance matters, why his presence matters, and why Gabriel's remarks were more than just unwise. They were out of touch. This wasn't just shade. It was a lecture, a warning, a full-on masterclass in why staying in your lane is sometimes the smartest move. Because at the end of the day, the media isn't just watching, they're shaping. And Stephen A. Smith has built a career turning moments like this into legacy-defining turning points. Gabriel's attempt to rattle Shedeur did exactly the opposite. It spotlighted his own irrelevance. It gave Sanders another win without him even touching the field. That's the real irony here. Gabriel set out to take something from Shedeur, his shine, his clout, his cool, but ended up handing him more of it, on a silver platter. And in the process, Gabriel marked himself as the cautionary tale. The guy who talked loud and got dunked on. Not on the field, but on national television. Permanently. And don't forget the deeper lesson underneath all this mess. Performance bravado. Always. You don't earn respect in football or in life by running your mouth. You earn it by showing up, delivering, and letting your work speak. And while Shedeur Sanders is busy becoming a future NFL star, Dillon Gabriel's most memorable highlight might be getting obliterated by a commentator. There's something poetic about it. One quarterback stays focused, keeps grinding, and lets his talent do the talking. The other tries to shortcut the process with a lazy diss and ends up becoming the headline for all the wrong reasons. This whole episode proves that legacy matters. Not just the legacy you inherit, but the one you build. Shedeur has both. He's not just Deion's son. He's a quarterback with poise, presence, and performance to back it up. And media figures like Stephen A. see that. They amplify that. Gabriel, on the other hand, tried to build a moment by tearing someone else down and lost control of the narrative in real time. It also reminds us how unforgiving the digital age can be. One dumb remark can go viral. One televised smackdown can define a whole season. When you go at someone who's already got the media behind them and the stats to justify it, you better come correct. Because if you don't, someone like Stephen A. is going to take that mic and make you wish you just stayed quiet. Let's be honest, this wasn't just a sports segment. It was a cultural event. A moment where legacy, performance, and perception collided. And only one player walked out with his credibility intact. And it wasn't Dillon Gabriel. So here's your mock moral of the week. In football, as in life, you better be somebody before you come for somebody else. Especially when that somebody is Shadur Sanders, and especially when Stephen A. Smith has a mic nearby. Now it's your turn. Do you think Gabriel's comment was just harmless trash talk, or did he cross a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest meltdowns, flops, and faceplants in the celebrity and sports world. Because around here, we don't just watch the drama, we live for it. This wasn't just some quick viral moment that fades in a week. This was a legacy-defining flop for Dillon Gabriel. The kind of moment where fans don't remember your stats or your best game. They remember the time you poked the bear and got mauled in return. Because when you go after Shadur Sanders, you're not just targeting a player. You're stepping directly into the media spotlight, and every weakness you've got is about to get aired out like laundry in a hurricane. Stephen A. Smith didn't miss any of those weaknesses. He brought out the receipts, talked about Gabriel's middling performances, his failure to dominate when it mattered, the lack of it factor. You know, the kind of qualities that separate hype from history. And that's the thing, Shadur Sanders? He's making history. He's putting up stats and stories. He's giving people a reason to talk, without needing to talk himself. Meanwhile, Gabriel fumbled his own narrative. One reckless comment, and boom, he's no longer just another quarterback. He's the quarterback who got ethered by Stephen A. on national TV, forever a part of a media blooper reel. And the worst part? Gabriel didn't even get the dignity of being taken seriously. Because when Stephen A. went in, it wasn't just fiery, it was surgical. He dissected the why behind Gabriel's shade. The insecurity, the desperation for attention. That's the brutal honesty that stings. It wasn't just you're wrong. It was, you're not relevant enough to even have this opinion. You felt that one. And this is where media becomes a weapon. A force multiplier. Gabriel might have thrown a jab, but Stephen A. launched a full-scale blitz. And by the time it was over, there was no mistaking the winner of this PR war. Shadur stood taller, without saying a word. Gabriel got torched with words, and the burn marks are permanent. Think about what this means in the broader scope of college football. We're in an era where image matters just as much as performance, where media narratives build Heisman campaigns, boost draft stock, and shape entire careers. You think NFL scouts aren't watching how players handle pressure off the field too? How they carry themselves in public? This isn't just about how far you can throw a ball. It's about how well you manage your moment. And Gabriel failed that test. Miserably. He tried to drag Shadur down and ended up highlighting everything he lacks. Confidence, poise, awareness. The kind of traits that make a quarterback more than just a player. They make him a leader. And let's be real. If you have to tear someone else down to feel big, you were never built for greatness to begin with. Now, Shadur, his game doesn't just speak, it shouts. He plays like someone who knows the weight of expectations and welcomes them. He doesn't shy away from the spotlight. He owns it. That's why Stephen A. went so hard for him. Not because Shadur's flawless, but because he deserves the respect. He's earned it with every snap, every throw, every moment under pressure. It's not just about being Deion's son. It's about doing the name justice. And so far, he's doing more than that. He's building his own legacy. You can't coach that kind of presence. You either have it or you don't. And Gabriel? Well, let's just say he's still searching for it. Here's where things get even messier. Gabriel didn't just misfire once. He also lit the fuse on a bigger conversation. Because the moment he tried to downplay the black quarterback game, consciously or not, it triggered a cultural response. A reminder that this isn't just about stats. It's about representation, visibility, power. Shadur Sanders is part of a new wave, talented, self-assured, media-savvy black quarterbacks who don't wait for permission to shine. They demand the spotlight, and they back it up. So when someone tries to take that away, especially someone without the resume to match, it doesn't just look petty. It looks threatened. And that's the real story underneath the noise. Gabriel's comment wasn't bold. It was insecure. It was a weak attempt to stay relevant in a system that's already moving past him. That's why Stephen A.'s takedown landed so hard. It didn't just challenge Gabriel's opinion. It exposed the fear behind it. You felt that tension ripple through the whole segment. Smith didn't just clap back. He called out the playbook. He laid bare the coded digs, the passive disrespect, the tired attempt to minimize black excellence through subtle shots. That's why it resonated so loudly. Because it's not just a Gabriel problem, it's a pattern. One that Stephen A. wasn't about to let slide. And let's talk consequences. Because this wasn't just a media moment, it was a momentum shift. Gabriel's name? Now attached to a loss he didn't even take on the field. His credibility? Undermined in a matter of minutes. This is the kind of misstep that sticks. Coaches hear it. Players notice. Fans remember. Meanwhile, Shedur's stock just went up. Again. Not because of anything he said, but because someone came for him. And the sports world responded like he was royalty being disrespected. That's power. That's cultural gravity. You don't teach that, you become it. And while we're at it, let's give out a few well-earned fake awards. The Oops, I Thought I Was Him award, Dillon Gabriel, for speaking on greatness from the sidelines of mediocrity. The Media Manslaughter Trophy, Stephen A. Smith, for legally obliterating someone's sports credibility on live TV. The Say Less, Win More medal, Shedur Sanders, for staying silent and still coming out on top. But all jokes aside, this moment was more than entertainment. It was a masterclass. In reputation management, in sports culture, in understanding when to speak and when to shut up and play. Gabriel failed that class. Hard. And the worst part? It didn't have to be this way. He could have focused on his own game. Let the season play out. Maybe earn some shine the hard way. Instead, he went for the shortcut. And in doing so, made himself a cautionary tale. The player who thought a headline could replace a highlight. Who learned the hard way that media isn't a game, it's a battlefield. And Stephen A., he's the final boss. So where does this leave us? With a clear message. In sports, performance is the language. If you're not speaking it fluently, your opinions don't translate. Shedur's doing the work. He's living up to the hype. Gabriel? He just learned that hype can crush you if you're not ready for it. And now, the clip lives on. Replayed. Quoted. Turned into memes. A permanent reminder that in the age of cameras, hot takes, and instant feedback, every word matters. And if you're going to swing at a rising star, you better pray you don't miss. Because if you do, someone like Stephen A. will make sure that miss echoes forever. So here's the closing thought, the final sip of tea. Shedur Sanders didn't just win the game of football. He won the game of narrative. And Dillon Gabriel? He just became a footnote in someone else's highlight reel. Let's talk about damage control. Because at this point, that's the only play Dillon Gabriel has left. But the question is, how do you clean up a mess this big when you made the whole mess yourself? This wasn't just a fumbled interview or a bad quote taken out of context. This was Gabriel walking straight into a media buzzsaw and getting absolutely shredded by one of the most influential voices in sports. Stephen A. Smith didn't just roast him. He turned him into a cautionary tale. The guy you bring up when athletes forget that talking trash without backing it up is a career hazard, not a flex. And the most brutal part? Gabriel can't even respond. Not really. Anything he says now will sound like backtracking. Anything too defensive looks weak. Anything too aggressive looks even worse. He's stuck, paralyzed by a moment that spun out of his control the second he opened his mouth about Shedur Sanders. That's the trap of modern sports media. It's not just about being talented anymore. It's about knowing when to speak, how to speak, and who not to speak on. Gabriel failed every one of those checkpoints. And the cost? His name is now a viral punchline. Let's be honest. Gabriel didn't walk into this with leverage. He wasn't coming off a career-defining season. He wasn't dominating headlines for his on-field heroics. He was already teetering on the edge of public interest. So when he came for Shedur, who, let's be real, is basically college football's main character right now, it felt less like a competitive call-out and more like a desperate grab for relevance. And you know what happens when the underdog tries to steal the spotlight from a star? People notice. People respond. And Stephen A. made sure that response was loud, sharp, and unforgettable. Now here's the kicker. This didn't elevate Gabriel. It elevated Shadur. Because not only did Shadur not need to clap back, he didn't even flinch. He let the world fight his battle. And they did. Fans, analysts, even rival commentators rushed to remind everyone that Sanders is that guy. Meanwhile, Gabriel just got flattened by the hype train he tried to derail. You ever see someone try to snatch the mic in a rap battle, only to forget their lines and get booed off stage? That's this. Gabriel tried to play the villain, but didn't realize villains need presence. And presence is something Shadur has in spades. He doesn't need to talk, because the world's already listening. And this is where the power dynamics get interesting. Legacy matters in this sport. Not just who you are, but what you represent. And Shadur represents something way bigger than himself. He's not just playing quarterback. He's walking proof of a new wave. Young, gifted, unapologetic black athletes who are reshaping what leadership looks like in college football, who know how to handle pressure, media, and expectation without cracking. So when someone like Gabriel steps out of line, it's not just about one disrespectful comment. It hits on all the unspoken dynamics. Who gets the benefit of the doubt, who gets hyped by the media, who's allowed to fail quietly, and who has to be perfect to be considered elite. That's what made Stephen A.'s response so potent. Because he didn't just check Gabriel. He checked the system that let him feel comfortable coming for Shadur in the first place. And yeah, maybe Gabriel didn't mean for it to go this far. Maybe he thought he was just stirring the pot. But in this climate, where every word is clipped, shared, dissected, and debated, that kind of slip-up isn't just careless, it's career-altering. So what now? Gabriel can try to outplay the moment. He can attempt to turn this into motivation, put up elite numbers, and force people to forget. But even that won't erase the fact that when given the spotlight, he used it to throw shade instead of shine. That's the memory that lingers. Because it's not just about how well you play. It's about what you stand for. And right now, Gabriel stands for missed opportunity, for speaking out of turn, for underestimating the power of a name, a legacy, and a loyal fan base ready to defend their guy at all costs. Meanwhile, Shadur doesn't have to say a word. He'll just keep doing what he's always done, showing up, proving himself, and letting the results speak. Because he knows the real ones don't need to talk down to rise up. They're already up. And for everyone watching from the sidelines, players, fans, future media hopefuls, the message is crystal clear. Don't come for the king if your stat line doesn't back it up. Because when the media fires back, they don't just end the conversation, they end you. Let us know what you think. Was this the biggest media drag of the season? Did Stephen A. go too far, or was this exactly what Gabriel deserved? Drop your thoughts below, hit that subscribe button, and stick around. Because in the world of sports drama, the mic never stays quiet for long.